Hi, my name is Isabel Gibby, and I'm doing my personal choice on the five-factor theory. After doing the NEOPI assessment, I was really interested in the different types of personality traits, so that's why I chose this as my personal choice. So Robert R. McCrae and Paul T. Costa Jr. are the two guys that came up with the Big Five. So a little background on McCrae is he was born in 1949 in Missouri, and he actually grew up interested in science and mathematics, but he didn't end up studying either of these. He studied philosophy at Michigan State, and then he studied psychology at Boston University. And he was influenced a lot by the work of Raymond B. Cartel, and he became really interested in using factor analysis because of this. And then eventually McCrae was referred by an advisor to Paul T. Costa Jr. So Paul T. Costa Jr., I'm just going to call him Costa because his name is way too long. He was born in 1942 in New Hampshire, and he also earned a psychology degree at Clark University in 1964. And he was pretty smart. He received a master's and PhD in human development, and he also published a book on the humanistic personality theory. So he taught 2 years at Harvard and then taught 5 years at the University of Massachusetts, Boston, but then this was where he met McCrae. So in 1976, Costa hired McCrae as a project director, and this was where they started discovering and researching the question of how personality is structured, and this took many years, and finally in 1983 they came up with 3 of the 5 personality traits. So this was NEO without the PI. So this was neuroticism, extroversion, openness, and it wasn't until a couple years later in 1985 that they came up with the 5-factor personality trait theory. So it's also known as FFM. The earlier theorists before them believed that there were many more personality traits than just 5, but Costa and McCrae focused on just the basic personality traits that everybody has. So it evolved into taxonomy, which then became the 5-factor model, and this developed into a theory, which means it can both predict and explain behavior. So the Big Five can be known by the acronym CANOE, can also be known as OCEAN. So this is conscientiousness, agreeableness, neuroticism, openness, and extroversion. So high on the extroversion. Before I'm going to get into this, I love Star Wars, so I decided to use the characters for it. So high on the extroversion spectrum is, I said, it was Princess Leia. These people are talkative, sociable, energized by social interaction, and potentially assertive. And then on the lower end of the spectrum, I put Obi-Wan. These people are energized by being alone, drained by social interaction, reserved, and tentative. And I'm more on the introverted spectrum. So I thought it was interesting when it said drained by social interaction, because that's exactly how I feel. I feel like it takes so much energy and effort just to talk to people and just be social in like a group. So I thought that was interesting. So I have some clips of examples. I feel like most characters in Star Wars are extroverted, but here's just an example of some of them.
Coming right at us. Shut him down. Take the deflector shield. Still on maneuver.
Okay, so that could go on forever, but part of extroversion is also linked to risk-taking. So Chewbacca, Princess Leia, and Han all show this, and I think especially Han does because he's steering the ship. But like I said, I feel like most characters in Star Wars are extroverted. So high on the neuroticism spectrum is C-3PO. This one's pretty obvious. He's there's like barely a scene where he's not worried about something. So these people are anxious, depressed, insecure, and reactive. And on the lower spectrum is more chill. So these people are posed, resilient, secure, and calm. So Luke is definitely more open to experience. These people are creative, imaginative, curious, and a potential thrill seeker. Definitely him. And then lower, again, I said was C-3PO because he's always worried. He always has to stick to like his comfort zone. So these people are conventional, conservative, dogmatic, and avoids thrill-seeking behaviors. So this is another clip.
Also thinking about our agreement, about me staying on another season. And if these new drugs do work out, I want to transmit my application to the academy this year.
You mean the next semester before the harvest?
Sure, there's more than enough droids.
Harvest is when I need you the most. Only one season, boy. This year we'll make enough of the harvest that I'll be able to hire some more hands, and then you can go to the academy next year. You must understand I need you.
But it's a whole other year.
There's only one more season.
Yeah, that's just a big thing. That's where you going. It's like I'm going nowhere. Just go finish reading those droids.
So this clip is such a great example of openness and openness to experience, because Luke wants desperately just to escape his normal life and to adventure and to try new things, and this is definitely what someone in openness would tend to do. I said Yoda was high in agreeableness because he's gentle, good-natured, understanding, and forgiving. And then on the lower, I said sometimes it can be Han because he can be irritable, short-tempered, uncooperative, and antagonistic. So it's just an example of Han.
Approaching ships.
General, I gotta leave. I can't stay anymore.
I'm sorry to hear that.
Well, there's a price on my head if I don't pay off Jabba the Hutt, I'm a dead man.
Death Mark's not an easy thing to live with. You're a good fighter, Solo. I hate to lose you.
Thank you, General. Well, Your Highness, guess this is it.
That's right.
You don't much on me. So long, Princess.
Yes, Your Highness.
I thought you were decided to stay.
Well, the bombings have been branded to an Orban Del Chief on mine.
Han, we need you.
We?
Yes.
Well, what about you?
I don't know what you're talking about.
Probably.
So in this scene, Han is kind of being kind of arrogant, and he's mostly thinking about himself. But on the other hand, Princess Leia is a very selfless person, and she puts everyone else's needs before her own. And this also shows a high level of empathy and trust. For conscientiousness, I put Anakin Skywalker on the high end. These people have few goals, systematic, organized, self-disciplined, careful, and responsible. And on the lower end, these people have many goals, but they're disorganized. They're also careless and irresponsible. So I think understanding our different personality traits is really important, just to understand our own behavior and tendencies. But it's important to realize that we're not stuck in our own personality trait. Like sometimes an introverted person can act in extroverted ways, just depending on certain situations. You're not always gonna act introverted. And our personality traits also aren't permanent. Like if we're lacking in an area and we wanna improve it, we can. It's just gonna take a lot more effort because it's not our natural tendency. So when it says you can seek new opportunities to help you strengthen your skills in that area, for example, like if someone's really introverted and they maybe want to become more extroverted, they can try to just put themselves in more social situations and more group, and it's going to take a lot more effort, but it can be done. And then it says we learn from our experience and adjust our behavior accordingly. So an example in Star Wars is Han Solo becomes a lot more agreeable over the series. His character becomes a lot more selfless and warmer, especially after his experiences with the Rebel Alliance. And And so ultimately, we're most comfortable with our personality traits and our tendencies, but it is possible to change if we want to. So yeah, that's my personal choice. Thanks for listening.